I was told by an old business professor at Notre Dame that, a lot of times we always say that if you don't grow, you die. There's probably a little bit of truth to that, but I do think that if you don't improve, you'll die.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Home Service Hustle. I'm your host, Jonathan Bannister, and today I'm with my new friend, Jim Kruspe, Profit Solutions Group. Jim, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Jonathan. Thank you for having me on.
Absolutely. So, Jim, obviously, you and I got connected through my CFO and friend, Angela Leopard, and the two of you guys kind of hit it off because y'all are kind of in the same world, but then obviously you're also on the operations side. So tell me a little bit about how it all began, how you got into this space, and then we'll just go from there.
Well, I got into the industry since I typically focus on HVAC and plumbing contractors. I do all trades, but I also do professional services. I do law firms, dental offices, anybody that sells time for money, essentially, right? But I got my start in this. I actually worked for a mechanical contractor, a startup, when I was in college at the University of Kentucky. I majored in mechanical engineering, so it was a natural fit for me to latch on to a mechanical contracting company.
Yeah.
As I went through that, I got my degree, and then went into the wholesale business, believe it or not, for a distribution company called Louisville Plumber Supply. Based out of Louisville, Kentucky. And then about a year and a half later, I was hired on at the R.E. Michael Company, based out of Baltimore, Maryland, and worked for them for up until about 2005, and decided to buy into a business that my former mechanical engineering colleague had owned, and he needed some help and needed the skill set that I brought, which is operations and the financial piece. And then sold my half, and then he sold his half back in 2020. So that's my story. And I got into the space actually in 2013 in the coaching realm because we did some things that our coach did. We hired a coach to kind of help us get where we wanted to go. We knew we couldn't do it alone. We needed somebody to have oversight with us. But yeah, that's what we did. And I got interested in the space, and I said, Mike, this is kind of what I want to do when I exit stage left in the contracting world. So my company has been in business since 2013. So I have a business background even before then. I got my MBA at the University of Notre Dame out of South Bend, Indiana, not Notre Dame College, but the big university, the big Catholic university up in South Bend. And then like I said, been doing this since 2013. So this is my 11th year in business, and I've got two other gentlemen that help me in their respective trades. And we do CFO work as well. So that's what we do.
What's been the biggest difference between being in the actual trade side of the business to the consulting side of it?
Well, you when you're a business owner, you get so emotionally attached to your company, right? So it's kind of like you're married to it. Well, you are married to it. So, you kind of get some blinders on. But when you're in the coaching and the consulting realm, you have no emotion and no other goal other than to see your client be successful, no matter if the information that you're giving them is what they need to hear or what they want to hear, one of the two. Everything and all the decisions that we do is based upon data, right? Based upon data and results, just kind of like what you all do, right? In the marketing realm on making decisions. So, it's a lot easier, I guess, per se, to sit there and say, hey, I don't have any emotion to this. You should be doing this, and not be tied to it, right? You don't have an emotional tie to an employee, or you don't have an emotional tie to a vendor or whatever. So that's been the biggest difference for me.
Okay. So what is, what kind of goes into a company that you're working with that say, they're $3 million and they've been just kind of stuck there, right? Floating around at 2.7. They get right around 2.9. Their goal is obviously, I think for a lot of companies, you that 3 million, 4 million, I think it's a very comfortable place to be as far as operations overhead goes. I think if you want to get to that next level, in my opinion, is like 5.5, 6 million and above. I think the infrastructure of your overhead, I think a lot of things change, and I think a lot has to go back into the business with changing some processes and procedures to get to that place. And I think that's where a lot of companies struggle. What is it about stuck around 2 to 3 million and getting to that 6 million mark? Like what is that shift that has to take place?
Well, when you're at the 2 to 3 million, typically what I see is that the owner is still involved in the business somehow.
Okay.
Right. Keep in mind when a contractor, a plumber, or a heating and air conditioning owner, they went into business obviously to think that they could either do it better than what they were doing it with the company that they worked for, or they just wanted to simply work on their own and not be bossed around by anybody. So they all hands on, and they have very, very difficult getting out of the field and not touching it or catching overflow from the service side of it. Right. And, they either have a spouse or they have a trusted person in the office to help them out with all the book work. Right. So they don't really kind of see the big picture of how they can grow. That's a word I'm looking for. They don't want to get out of the business. They think that because they're in it, is the only way that they can grow. And, that's just the opposite. If you work on your business, you'll grow, but if you work in it, you're going to kind of stagnate. And, that's where that's going to permeate. Right.
So when you go in, what are some of the key things you're looking for, Jim, when you're kind of doing your audit of the business and they tell you, hey, Jim, look, we got to 0 to 2.8, 3 million super quick. And now we've been stuck here for about 3 or 4 years and we're not sure what to do. Like, what are the things that you're looking for that you kind of know are some of the key indicators? And you probably already know that you're going to find these things anyways. But what are some of those things that are causing people to stay stuck?
I think fear. I think if them working on the business, I don't think, again, they don't know how. They've always been working in it.
Okay.
And, they tend to think, okay, I know the business. I know how to fix stuff. I know how to install stuff. I know how to do this, that, and the other. Most of these contractors are just they're not savvy business people. As you see the companies that have grown to above the $10 million mark and the $15 million mark. And some people don't want that big, right? Some people don't want that. But when you look at it, once they get to that 10 million, 15 million, they have somebody that has a vested interest, a part owner, partner, or whatever, of somebody that's got business savvy. Nobody from the industry. They just know numbers. They know all those things. And sometimes I believe the contractor gets scared of numbers. I really think they do. I think they don't want to know, simply because they think they have cash flowing for the business, that they're making money. And hey, I've got a brand new boat that I just bought. I'm making more money than I ever have. They kind of it's kind of that plausible deniability. I don't want to know. And that's what you see a lot of times.
Yeah, I think I've had some clients that have been around that $3.5, $4 million place. They've been about 22 to 25% net profit numbers. Like, they ran a very lean business. They ran a lot of their expenses and things personally through the business, and still at that amount. So it's like they lived very comfortably. They had a great vacations. They had nice fishing boats. And they were like, look, we know if we want to get to 6 million, like, I'm going to have to cut back on some of the things that I enjoy in life. Because you're going to have to change the way you operate the business. Also, how much cash you're taking out of the business to float your lifestyle, because you are going to have to invest more into your marketing, your advertising, your people, like the training and things like that. And I feel like that's some of the things that people may just they think they may have to do it, but unless they have somebody there to hold them accountable to do it, all of it just won't get done.
Correct. And that's the thing is that they, I've seen companies actually. I had a client I just asked a couple of weeks ago. I said, do you still like being in the truck? Oh yeah, I love being in the truck. Well, then you're going to have to hire somebody to be the big picture person. Yeah. I said, if you want to be, and I'm just giving you an example of a state. Let's say the state is Texas, right?
It's a great state, by the way.
It's a great state. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeehaw. Right. So, all right. Yeah. So, but Matthew McConaughey, but they're in the SEC. They're actually in a real football conference now. So it's all good.
Yep.
So, but you've got to have a visionary, and you got to have an implementer. A lot of people are before we got on here, we were talking about L10, right? So, and if everybody's familiar with L10 meetings, it's called the Entrepreneurial Operating System by Gino Wickman, right? So, traction. And typically you have a lot of implementers that are in the business, but then they don't have the forward sight to think about how they want to grow and how they want to, what's that 10-year look ahead look like to them? How do I make, if they want to sell the company, how do I make myself attractive to be one of the healthiest and one of the most sought after companies to buy? Right.
Yeah.
And that's where they're going to have to not only say, they're still hitting that 20, 25% EBITDA, but you know what? They've also got to employ technology too. We got some great things nowadays here, just in the last couple of years that people can deploy technology. Yourself, you visited Billy Stevens's place there in Texas. I mean, facility from what Angela was telling me and things like that, with only minimal amount of people inside that operation and the business that they're doing with technology. So, and again, I think people are afraid to get that big because a lot of times these gals came from these bigger companies and they saw the dysfunction, because we all know that there's dysfunction sometimes as you get bigger, right? Everybody gets more disconnected and things like that. But, that's why we talk a lot about culture and, keeping the culture the same as you grow. But, I was told by an old business professor at Notre Dame that, a lot of times we always say that, if you don't grow, you die. Well, there's probably a little bit of truth to that, but I do think that if you don't improve, you'll die, right? If you don't get better at what you're doing, but if we get better, we're going to naturally grow, right? And those are the things that I see. Is, again, I think it's a lot of the there's a big thing. I never wanted to be this big. I never wanted to be that big. Sometimes they don't know what they don't know, and you go back into it. I got a fishing boat. I got a houseboat. I'm living high on the hog already. Why would I want to change the things that I am now, right? But it all goes back to, Jonathan, is we sit down and we get a 10-year look ahead, and we check in with that every year. When we sit down and say, are you sure everything is not changed? Because things can change. I mean, look what happened during the pandemic when people sold their companies, right?
Yeah.
Your EBITDA was getting 5, 6, 7 times what they were getting back in the day. Mm-hmm. So, it's all about timing. Everybody says, well, I'll never sell this company, or I'll never sell my company. I think everybody has their price.
Absolutely.
At some point.
Absolutely.
At some point.
Well, I mean, because I've heard and seen that same thing from owners, and it's like, okay, you have no intention of selling, but then they're kids that they're thinking they're working in a business that they don't really know, hate the business, aren't going to be the future of the business. And then it's like, well, as that owner gets in his 70s, it's like, well, now what are you going to do? Right. Cool. Now you haven't made it really sellable. And in their minds, they're thinking it's worth a whole lot more. And I've had to tell some of them it's worth the assets that you have right now, because Correct. You don't really, you've got a $5 million company that unfortunately, I don't know how you got here, because you've got a couple hundred maintenance agreements. You think you have thousands of customers, and a lot of them are repeat customers, but they don't have them locked into something that makes it actually attractive to an investor. And
and that's one of the. I'm glad you brought that up, because there's a difference between a customer and a client. That's all about relationship with the client, right?
Absolutely.
If you have a customer, that's transactional, or a client is relational.
Yeah.
And those are the things, and you're exactly correct. You look at, for every $1 million in revenue, you should have at least 500 maintenance agreements. And that's what you have to sell. It's a repeatable business, right? So, they again, when everybody doesn't know what we don't know. I mean, it's not like they're uneducated or anything like that. They're just ignorant to the fact of, I'm going to live forever, but what am I going to do? They don't think about, hey, I may want to buy my building and then set my building in a holdings company that I own, and then rent my company rents my building from me, right? They don't think about all those things, and think about the I call the legacy, right? They don't have the kids that want to buy it. Do they have an employee that wants to buy it, right? So it's all about, and I always tell clients, if you're looking to sell and you're looking to maximize your profit off the sale of your company is only going to be worth more than without you in it.
That's right.
Because if you're the company, you're like, just back to what you said, your company is really not worth anything.
Yeah.
So,
and I've seen that situation play out as well. And I think it's a great model. If, you should always be thinking the next step. And the next step may not be something you want or ever going to do, but you should always have some kind of plan. I think there has to be an extra strategy in every area of your life, right?
Absolutely.
No one plans on dying until they get older, but you should still have some plans in place, especially when you have children, because it's not fair when accidents happen and there's no plan in place. So I've seen people, not really grooming an employee, but that's their person, and they know if anything ever happened, and this is going to be their company. And I've seen it where something unfortunately did happen, and the family's ready to sell, that employee's ready to buy it, but the number the family thinks it's worth is astronomical, because when that person that's going to buy it, guess what? He doesn't have all the cash to just go write you a check. So when he's got to go to the bank is really going to run some numbers to see what that business is worth. And what the family thinks it's worth compared to what it's actually worth is completely different, because they did not have the business set up to actually be able to sell properly.
Correct. And that's, I've been in a couple acquisitions and mergers on both sides of that fence here in the last couple of years. So not as obviously as an attorney or anything like that, but, just from an owner's perspective and seeing how that process plays out. But, we all think even our individual self is worth more than what we truly can be.
Yeah.
Right. So we have to prepare, because again, we don't know. We don't know if I came to you, Jonathan, and you had a contracting company. I said, Jonathan, you're a $5 million company. You know what? I'm going to give you $3 million for it. You know what? I wouldn't hesitate on me packing up my stuff and saying, here's my keys. Right. So we all have a price. We all have a price to exit, right? And it's not necessarily that we reach the destination, right? But it's just something that we can move on from and say, okay, I sold my company, and what am I going to do? And I think that we have to. I know we have to be able to improve ourselves and have something always to look forward to, right? We always have to see that bigger picture, because the resources that we gain from all this, we can help a lot of people. And if you go to your core values and you're true to your core values, and a lot of these companies are about helping community and helping, all those things, how are you going to be able to do those things if you don't have the time to do them?
Yeah, you're right.
Because we're buying time. That's what we're doing. Let's say I always use this. Let's say you're making $500,000 a year. That's what you're bringing home, right? Jonathan, if I said, you know what, we're going to pay somebody $200,000 to come in here and run this company, would you be okay with you just only making $400,000?
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? There's those things of how much is your life going to change. Now, I'm not saying that people don't live lavishly and high on the hog and, overspend and things like that. But at the end of the day, it's not going to change who Jim Kruspe is and what Jim Kruspe does. I'm gonna gladly trust that person to run my company and do those things that need to be done. I'm still going to trust and verify and have oversight of it. But guess what? Now I can go out and do things. I can do foundational work. I can go out and help the trades and, do the things that I want to do. I'm 55 years old, and everybody says, well, Jim, does your coaching practice? I was like, well, you got me. All right. I'm a business coach. I'm a consultant, but yet, unfortunately, I do have two other people and they're younger than me. However, Profit Solutions Group has been known for about me. Right. So unfortunately, that probably will die off as soon as I decide to exit stage left or decide to really I don't think I'll ever retire. I always say that. I like to play golf. I like to fish. I like to hunt. I like to do all that kind of stuff. Right. But, at the end of the day, I always, as long as my mind is right and my body's right, I see myself helping and doing this for as long as I can.
Yeah. I envy you because, at some point in my life, I'm going to train and consult, and so that's from, marketing side or whatever. I don't care where it's at. I want to be able to help people and look at it from a different approach and be able to get in there and make their dreams come true and let them live a better life and help their employees live a better life. Like, that's exciting. So it's awesome you're getting to do it.
Yeah. And we don't always recommend working with just one coach. We only have an expertise in one, a couple certain areas. There's coaches and consultants that do sales, that do all these other things that we don't do, right? We don't claim to do them. I believe having a team of people that you can draw upon with the knowledge is going to be what is going to be strengthen your team. That's part of your thing. So yeah.
Let's talk about mindset a little bit. What is there anything that you do to work and strengthen on your Jim's mindset? And then the second part of the question would be, how important is it when you're doing training to go in and really try to find out the mindset of the people you're working with? Do they know what they're wanting, right? Do they want to be in the truck? Do they want to be the owner that's not really in the business, but knows how to manage the director and the operations person that's going to take over? How important is that, not only for you to ask those questions, but that they truly know what it is they want? So let's go with the first one. What does Jim do with his mindset?
Well, with my mindset, the first question I ask is, are you, how do I want to put this? Is the person and the individual are they going to be willing to absorb the information and being able to implement those things that we're talking about?
Okay.
Are they open? Are they going to have an open mind enough in order to accept some of the things that they improve upon? Does that make sense?
What are some things? Are you asking open-ended questions? Are you wanting to see how they kind of respond to you about things?
Yes.
Because that's going to tell you a lot. Because anybody can say, yeah, Jim, I'm going to be open to everything. I watch shows that you probably do for different reasons, but I watch things like Bar Rescue and things like that because I want to see how these other business owners are open to change and stuff. And it's crazy to see the different personalities that you're working with that may say, I want this, but they're in their own way and they can't get out of their own way and they won't get out of their own way. So that personality type, it's almost uncoachable.
Correct. And that's, those are the things that we have to discuss, first off is, are you open to change? And because obviously if we keep on doing the same things over and over again and expecting different results, right? We know what that is, the definition of insanity, right? Yeah. So, those are the typical things of what we look for, obviously, in the mindset. Are they willing to get out of the truck? We really try to delve into, why do they think they need to be in the truck? Why do they think they need to be involved in the business? Why do they, once we accomplish and solve those things, then we can move forward, right? Because if you don't, any coaching relationship, consulting relationship, if that person is not open to change, or they're not going to implement the information that is discussed, there's no coach and no consultant that's going to be worth their salt. They're going to think it's a failure. And I'm sure you've walked into offices and you see these big old 3-ring binders of all these Nexstar manuals and these BDR manuals and all these other things. And I walk in and I'm thinking, why are you calling me? You've got all this information right here with all these best practices. What's going on? Right. So, a lot of times they're great. You have either great implementers that can't see past today, or you have great visionaries that can see so far ahead that they can't get the day-to-day stuff done.
I've been in that. That's been me a lot of my life. And because I am a visionary, I am a true visionary through and through. And sometimes you think you're ready to jump into that next opportunity that you see. And it is probably a great idea and a great direction to head into. It just may be the wrong timing because you're not completely finished with something else that you're working on. And all it does is, I think, kind of muddy the waters everywhere with everything that you got going on.
Right.
And so
we have to identify, are they a visionary or are they an implementer?
Yeah.
That's important that way, because, whether anybody likes it or not as a business owner, we all fall on the organizational chart somewhere.
Do you make them, do you make all your clients go through some variation of EOS?
Yes. We go through just about every step of EOS. In fact, it's 100%. Yeah. Yep.
And so obviously during your interview phase with people, you got to find out, are they open to this operating system?
Correct.
Yeah.
So again, it's asking those questions. It's a simple, where do you see yourself in 10 years?
Yeah. If
they have no clue, that gives me an idea that they're not forward thinking, right? They're thinking the day to day. And, they really, and typically, when do people engage coaches?
When they're in trouble.
When they're in trouble, right? Yeah. When should they be engaging a coach?
When they're growing and looking to scale or grow even more and want to make sure that they've got their processes dialed in and that they're bringing home as much money as they possibly can and they're protecting their margins.
Have you ever heard of the saying of clarity is power?
Yeah.
So typically when we hear that help thing, right? Of, I need help. Okay, well, what kind of help do you need? And a lot of times we found out that the owners are just cloudy in their thinking. They really don't know what to focus on. Again, these business owners have been so involved in the business that they're wearing too many hats. So what we do is we say, draw an org chart. Now, fill every org chart, even if you're filling both of those roles or 3 or 4 of those roles, right? Now, because we're all visual people. I'm a visual person. I'm an engineer by trade, right? So I like flow charts and, things like that. So if I see myself, our business coach did that with us. I'm like, oh my gosh, how can we grow? How can we grow if we're all stuck here? We can't, right? So they have to determine what's the most important thing to take off their plate in order for them to be starting to focus on where they're the best. And we find out what their skill set is. They might not be the perfect business owner. I mean, think about that question. They may not be the leader, the best leadership for that company. They may have to go outside and hire somebody else to come in and run their company. If you think about it,
that's got to be I can see where if I was in your shoes, that would be one of my questions on my checklist. I'm asking, kind of like I had somebody on, I had a podcast the other day. Who was it? And it was talking about, it was Brad Hone with Air Scrubber, and he says, part of these technicians not asking the right questions to the homeowners to just get their mind open up to possibilities of something being wrong. And he said, okay, well, if you walk into a home and you just ask the question, listen, I'm going to go check on these things. I just want to make sure it's okay with you. If I find something that is wrong or needs to be brought to your attention, I'm going to come to you and show it to you. Right. And it's like the homeowner is going to appreciate that you're going to be open and transparent with them with anything that is found. Because if you do find mold or something, and 9 times out of 10, you can find it. And it's like, well, listen, I can find it. I could take off this blower motor. I could clean it. But guess what? It's going to come back. The problem is going to come back unless we were to implement something that could prevent it from continuing to grow. But when you don't even open the question that way, it's like he kind of framed it and said, well, it would be like going to the doctor and you telling the doctor, hey, doc, look, if you find something wrong, I don't want to know about it. Like, no one's going to do that. Like, people want to know
Exactly.
if there's a problem, and people don't want to communicate that. But I think if I was in your shoes, I would be like, well, I need to know that if I go through my full evaluation with this owner and this team and this company and this culture, if this guy or this gal is not the right people to run this company, I need to know that, are they willing to get out of the way, let me find the right person, let them still be the owner, but they need to let the right person run it. And I don't think there's probably a lot of coaches out there that are willing to do that, Jim.
That's correct. And that's because we're all, well, again, we go back into the EOS model, the right person in the right seat, right?
Yep.
And when you look at, the leadership team, I mean, look at your all's leadership team and think about, you trust, because, when you're a company, all right, I look at companies like a very tactical, specialized unit, right? And what better specialized unit than the Navy SEALs? And I know you're going to say he's going to bring up a Navy SEAL story, because we all bring up Navy SEAL stories, right? But if you ever listen to Simon Sinek has a TED Talk about how SEAL Team 6 chooses their people, right? And they choose them based upon a high trust level, because they believe they can teach the skill set, because all Navy SEALs, because SEAL Team 6 is the elite of the elite.
Yep.
Right. So, I think that, when you look at that, you're got to have people in the right seat all the time. And they're not afraid to tell anybody that, hey, you're not cut out for this. You need to be in a different situation. You need to be, you may be the owner of the company, but here's where your skill set's the best. You can benefit the company here. And, a lot of people won't say that. We as consultants and coaches, one of the beauties of being there is you can be straightforward. And again, being an engineer, we're kind of black and white, right? Whereas there's kind of the gray area is not really over here. We see everything in black and white, but as you do this long enough, you'll understand that there is some gray area, right? And can the person that owns the company, can he be taught the skill set, right? Because there's a lot of owners that have been taught the skill set on how to be a leader, right? But they hired their buddy when they were just a one-man shop, and they hired their buddy to help out with service and, this, that, and the other. So, all this comes back to being tied to emotion. And that emotion, what does that do when we're having emotional things going on in our family and our business? It clouds our member. It clouds us, right?
Yeah.
So then we can't get out of our own way if we're cloudy. So we have a huge thing called clarity is power, right? And, you've got to have clarity on who you are, and are you in the right seat? You could be the CFO, but maybe you're not very good at operations. Maybe you're not very good at sales. Me, I'm probably the worst salesperson in a consumer relationship when it comes right down to it, because I probably get too technical with people.
Right.
Right. Because that's who I am. And I know I'm not a great salesperson in the HVAC arena or the plumbing arena. Right. But I do know how to sell myself and sell, what we do, and bring it down into what's in it for the business owner. right?
Yeah.
And we look at a three-ringed thing. We call everything envelopes with the words freedom and confidence. That's what we guarantee is we're going to give you the freedom, and we're going to give you the confidence to be a business owner. So, we don't hardly ever guarantee profits sometimes, right? Because again, we don't know what their sales capability is, but we try to identify those areas of weak points, right? And where they need to improve. So
what do you do? What are some things that you do on that clarity? You mentioned like when do most people come to coaches, right? Well, the wrong time. Unfortunately, most come at the wrong time when their business is struggling and failing and they've got all these issues. So in that case, they probably got a lot of issues in the business, issues in their personal life. So like, what does Jim and his team do to help these people get clarity? Because if they don't have that clarity, no matter what you try to come in and fix, it's not going to be 100%. Because you don't have, the leadership of the company 100%, focused.
That's a great question. What we do is we look at what's taking up their headspace in a negative way.
Okay.
Whether it's employees, they got bad employees, or, we have to really dive in and ask the questions and what's taking up their headspace. That's the biggest key is, I can remember a year ago, I had a client every biweekly that we met, same issue. I'm like, you've got to make a decision, right? A lot of these owners are overthinking things too, right? But that's what we do is we really find out, because once they get rid of that one, let's say it's an employee that's just driving them bonkers and they can't get them out of their head. Well, we solve that issue and we say, by tomorrow, you're going to have this solved, right? And there's a lot of coaches that won't do this. I mean, we come down to it and I say, okay, Jonathan, if you're not going to do this, I can't help you to where you want to go. So until you make this decision, my suggestion is we disengage our coaching relationship. And when you're ready to come back and you've gotten rid of this, then we can proceed. They've got to, and it's usually that one thing, Jonathan, that really hangs them up that they just can't get past, right? I've had clients.
I'd be willing to bet there, Jim, that this is probably early on in the relationship with them, and you're seeing it, and like you're like, these decisions got to be made, or we can't, move forward. But I would be willing to bet it's usually early on, because if
Correct.
Someone's got 6 or 8 months with EOS, then that shit doesn't matter anymore, because it is
correct.
It is a seat. It is a person. And if it's the wrong person for that seat, it's an easy decision to make. It doesn't mean
Correct.
always that person even has to 100% be gone out of the company. A lot of times it does. But at the end of the day, you don't look at it as a person anymore. It's just, is it the right person for that seat? Like it's
right.
it's not Susie. It's not a name attached to it. It is a position being filled. And is it the right, human that is fulfilling that position, period.
Right. And here's the other piece too, just because these people helped you to get to 2 million, they may not be the right people to get you to 5 and to 6 to 7 to 8 into the 8-figure realm either.
100%. I love that.
Right. So, we evaluate everybody, and we ask the client to evaluate everybody, right? What do they do for you? Are they in the right seat? And that's even if there's no, when we ask questions, hey, does there a certain person that takes up 85% of your time in a non-productive way, right? At the end of the day, Jonathan, what we want to do is we want to be able to say to the owner, look, your time needs to be invested where there's purpose, profit, or peace. If it doesn't fit into those three things, then you don't do it. And it's hard for that discipline to kick in if you really think about it, right? I mean, think about those things of, in the daily life that you do. Right? A lot of people work out not only because it's good for them, because it's peace to them, right? And there's a purpose to it.
Yeah.
So now you're hitting 2 out of the 3 things, right? There's also probably a profit to it as well. Your body's more healthy, right? Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, if you're spending time that doesn't hit any of the 3, those peace, profit, or purpose, then really we're not spending our time the way we should. We work a lot on time management, believe it or not. And we use the Eisenhower matrix with that. I don't know if you've ever heard of the Eisenhower matrix, but it's a very, very useful tool. It helped me when I was in college. Let's put it that way. So
I've wrote down the peace, profit, and purpose. I love that. And I guess to some extent, I live by that now, because there's shit I push out of my life all the time and it's a lot of it's on the peace side. Like, I protect my peace at all costs at this point. I mean, I just, I just think, like, life is short, and I've always heard that, and it's just always kind of been, just this quote or saying, but it's like, the older I get, it's like, I do quickly see, like, my kids, like, every time I turn around, like, they're, closer and closer to teenagers, and then I'm gonna blink again and they're gonna be, moving out the house. And it's like, I'm not gonna waste my time. I'll help anyone. And a lot of times I'll do it for free, but I'm just not gonna do it if it interrupts my peace. And you got drama, or you're wanting me to help solve a problem, but you're not willing to, fix your own shit and take care of some things on the front end. I can see how quickly, as a coach, you would just say, hey, look, this probably isn't going to work right now. Maybe once you fix your stuff. And some people just got to get out of their own way, and they just may not be ready to get out their own way at that point.
And half the time it's not business related. Half the time it's personal related. We find out that actually it's somebody in their personal life that's occupying that space. And, to be a visionary, we have to have, in order to see that far ahead, we have to have the clarity, and I always tell people, your 10-year vision is not written in stone, because again, we're trying to pivot and we don't know what the world's going to throw at us. However, we kind of got a map of where we want to go. We may have to divert right or divert left, but at least we know where we want to go in 10 years. That's not our destination. That's just the level and the milestone we want to hit by then, right? And that's the beauty of what I think EOS is they make you bite off little chunks at a time, right?
Yeah.
And I always love the thought process. When I was in sports, we had a strength coach that said, if you can improve yourself 5% every time you work out, or even 1%, the compounding interest on that on a daily basis is astounding.
Yeah.
Right. So we all need chunks of either revenue or other things, but at the end of the day, we've got to be able to want to improve that 1%. If we're going backwards, we need to figure out why we're going backwards, not in the plus side.
I had a ton more questions lined up that my producer Sarah put together, but a lot of this has been talking about EOS because it gets me super excited, because I know the impact that it's made for my companies and the clients of mine that I've seen Angie implement EOS for them. It's been game changer. And to hear that you force that it's a requirement with your coaching clients, I absolutely love that, because I think that is one of the things, the structure piece that is missing, and it really does solve so many problems. So I'm telling you, the listeners out there, please go get what the heck is EOS first and read that. It's a basic, read. It just gives you a 30,000 foot overview, but then go get Traction and take a deep dive into Traction and truly try to understand what is missing from a structural and organizational perspective of your company. And you have to make sure that these people, that they are the right person for the right seat. And if you, this is, I want to say it was either in the first chapter of Traction, but it gave the analogy that like you got to have everybody on the boat rowing in the right direction. And so I'm a
Exactly.
visual person. So when I read, I see this boat, and it's like the old Viking ship, and everybody's got their oar and they're going. But you may have a boat of 100 people rowing, but if you have one person that's rowing the wrong way, that boat, it may only come off course the tiniest little bit, but over time in the ocean, it's going to make you way off of where you're trying to get to. And so that's what people don't get, is they think, oh, she's about to retire soon. It's not that big of a deal. And it's like, no, you don't know the compounding effect of the wrong person in the wrong seat, of what that will have on your business. It may only be this much, but this much over time, it may throw your whole, everything off course, and people just don't realize that. I think until you can see it with some kind of structure that EOS puts into place, it's hard for them to see.
Correct. And that's exactly correct. And that's once we've been 6 to 8 weeks into an EOS, and I also recommend everybody reading Rocket Fuel. If you've read Traction, you got to read Rocket Fuel too, because a lot of times we concentrate on the visionary, but thank God they finally concentrated on the integrator, right? Yeah. On the people that are doing that. So
we make it a requirement. All new employees, and a lot of our staff isn't, they have their own mini EOS meetings, but we make it a requirement. All new staff have to read what the heck is EOS and Traction, like right out the gate. We're obviously trying to train future leaders and things, but Jim, let's talk about real quick. There's a lot of changes coming in the market, right? We went through COVID. We saw these crazy numbers that people were getting acquired for. Obviously, reality has come back. We're not seeing those same multiples any longer, unless it's a really, really well put together business, the way that they wanted before COVID. In order to get those types of multiples, it had to be everything had to be in place, from the operations and the financial side of it. We're seeing a trend coming up with less equipment being purchased by the manufacturers and things like that. So I do feel that there's a big slowdown that's taking place now, and over the next couple of years is going to be in the industry. What are you telling people? Like, how are you preparing them for, let's say they don't want to grow. They don't want to sell, right? But they want to make sure that they're healthy and sustainable through this possible, let's just call it a HVAC home service recession that we could be going into. And I think a lot of that is caused because of the irresponsibility handling of things the wrong way during COVID. All right. And it is just what I'm going to say. There was opportunities to make a lot of money in COVID, and people took advantage of that. And There's a lot of new systems that were sold. But what are you telling people? How are you getting them to prepare and plan?
Well, again, I believe that we have to go back and to really kind of, I listen to Billy Stevens a lot, and I think he's one of our biggest innovators in this industry. He's outside thinking. He thinks outside the box. But, if you listen to what he says, it's going back to letting the consumer decide what's best for them, and present all your options to them. I can Band-Aid this for another year. I can do this. I can rejuvenate this system for $3,000. Maybe that's something. Or we can just go ahead and replace this whole system because you're out of warranty and blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
And I think that, like you just said, companies were always hitting that home run all the time. But, as you see, I know around here in the Midwest, in the Cincinnati market and Kentucky market, your average, we got a mixed bag here. We got heat pump and we have natural gas here too.
Yep.
Right. So we see natural gas systems going, $12,000, $13,000 entry level. That's a big jump from when I was even in contracting.
Yeah.
It's a lot easier to scale to the 8-figure mark when you got that kind of average ticket on that side of it. But then you go to the heat pump side, right? And you're looking at what, $9,000, $10,000 minimum on that side of it as well. And I can remember way back when we used to be able to carry air conditioners and air handlers on our back. They were so light you could throw them in for $4,500, right? So you're talking 3 times the cost now. But you've got to be able to and listen. We often talk about 2 ears, 1 mouth, and using those proportionally. We've got to listen and take our time with each customer that we get, because that cost of acquiring, not just the cost of the lead, but the cost of acquisition means so much. We got all the indoor air quality products that have been out. Just because you don't hit that home run, I've got duct cleaning companies that are selling $3,500 indoor air quality package that I've never heard of the even air conditioning guys even selling them.
I know.
Isn't that crazy?
I know.
So it can be done. And all they're doing is asking questions. Right.
Like I said, I had Brad Hone on the other day, and I love going to events and doing speaking engagements with Brad. He's super passionate about this industry, and and we ran the numbers. I think I got them written down right here, and then the numbers go something like, he was giving an example. If you're like a $2 million company, you run about 320 service calls for the year. And his team will come in and train for free and train their guys how to sell and talk about this stuff the right way. And he was like, they almost guarantee that they can convert 10% of all of those sales into some kind of indoor air quality product or system. And so just the math on that, and let's say the average of $1,500 on that sale, it's $48,000 a month, $336,000 for the year. Like, so you take a $2 million company to add an extra $400,000 in revenue to it, it's pretty strong, and you're already there. It's
right.
Why are you trying to hurry up and get through and slap that new capacitor on and get in and out? If you can't sell them a system, then you just fix it and you leave real quick. Slow down, take your time, earn that customer's business for life.
Well, and here's the thing. And again, as I've told you, I'm not a salesy. That's not my thing. But, I've heard that. Have you ever heard the term consumer friendly explanations?
No, but I understand the thought of it.
Right. You want to use, I'm going to read because I found this, and I'm going to read it. It says, here are a few tips. Avoid technical jargon and use simple, easy to understand terms. Be patient and listen actively to the customer's concerns before responding. Use positive and reassuring language to take a sense of trust and empathy to create it, right? Provide clear and concise explanations without overwhelming the consumer with too much information. I'll give you an example of this. Let's say you're replacing a contactor or you're replacing a capacitor, right? Here's the explanation that you should use. Mr. and Ms. Jones, the contactor is like the on-off switch for your air conditioner or heat pump. It controls the flow of electricity to the system. Over time, contactors can wear out due to frequent switching, leading to issues like your AC not turning on or off properly. Replacing a faulty contactor ensures your system receives the correct electrical signals to operate smoothly, preventing potential breakdowns and extending the life of your unit.
Easy to understand.
Easy to understand. And technicians' verbiage, but also our nonverbal language has to be on point as well, right? And we need to, again, every call that we're on, we need to take the time to understand and develop a client rather than a customer.
Yeah.
Because, and again, just because, contactors today are changing out at $350, $400. Right. So, that's the thing. I'll take 70% margin on contactors all day long, and if it's not the right time, I know now that I've got a client, because guess who's going to come back and buy from me after I've given them all their options and say, only you can decide what's going to be best for you at this time. I'd be happy to do either, but this is your best solution, but we can Band-Aid it if need be and get by with it for you. There's no guarantee, right? But, here's your options.
100%. Well said. All right, we reached the end of the show where I'm going to go rapid fire questions with Jim. Jim, I'm going to fire out a few questions. Just shoot from the hip. You ready?
Yeah.
Childhood hero.
Oh, well, you know, I'm a Kentucky boy, right?
Yep.
So one of my childhood heroes was Muhammad Ali.
Nice. That's a good one. Beach or mountains?
Say that, beach or mountains?
Yeah.
Well, again, I'm a country boy. I like the mountains, but I like the beaches. I like the beaches of Cocoa Beach, but I also like the mountains of Eastern Kentucky as well.
So you lean a little more towards the mountains.
Yeah, probably so.
All right. There's a famous person that you would invite to have dinner with. They can be dead or alive.
You know, I would probably invite Albert Einstein.
I like that. I could see, you know, we throw some crazy hair on Jim right now. I just saw, you know, what that looks like. Most adventurous thing that Jim's ever done.
Say that again. I'm sorry.
Most adventurous thing that you've ever done.
I've actually skydived.
Nice.
So yeah, tandem jumped. So yeah, that's probably the most exhilarating and adrenaline rushing I've ever done.
What's something surprising that most people don't know about you?
That I actually play 3 brass instruments, believe it or not. I guess one's considered a woodwind, but I play the trumpet, baritone, and the saxophone.
Nice. How long have you been doing that?
Since I was, you know, was a 4th grade, we flew the little white flutophone thing, and you know, I did it all throughout middle school, and had to give it up a little bit as I went and did my entertaining football career, and then still played. You know, I still had my trumpet and still had my saxophone and things. So, you know, it was always a way to have that peace, right? You know, you just sit there and play, and I could play by ear and, you know, have a good old time.
I love it. That's awesome. I want to pick up an instrument soon. So I'm thinking guitar. My wife's into,
there you go,
you know, musicians. So, you know, I figured, you know, I'll be more attracted to her if I can learn how to play the guitar.
There you go. There you go.
If you had to make a career change right now, what would it be?
Oh man, you really got to throw out a tough one at the last one, don't you?
That's not the last one is coming.
I would be probably a doctor, emergency room doctor.
Okay. Dr. Jim, new name.
Dr. Jim.
All right. And the last question is, does Jim believe in aliens?
You know, I do believe that some other form of life exists.
Yeah. Well, that would be an alien, right? I mean, like, I don't.
Yeah.
I don't
well, here in Kentucky, we call aliens Tennesseans. So, or Hoosiers, one of the two, right? So, I probably won't get very many likes from the Tennessee folks or the Indiana.
Probably
folks.
not.
That's okay. Probably not. So,
well, Jim,
but I still love them all.
Real quick, where can people find you? We're obviously going to put it together in an email and stuff, but where can people find you?
www.psgnky.com.
I love it. Jim, thank you so much for coming on the show, and thank you for everything that you do for the industry. And I look forward to doing more with you here in the near future, because I want as many as my clients I can to join forces with you. So thank you so much, my friend.
Great. Thank you, Jonathan, very much. Been an honor.
I appreciate it.
Take care. Yes, sir.